So I put up a resin shed for a client, and lo and behold, the same problem befell upon him that befalls upon all shed owners. The inevitable mess that comes along with having a shed where everything has to go on the floor. So a little bit of stuff takes up all the room. And then you've got all this wasted space up high. So I've got an idea to help out. I'm going to measure the shed, build a shelving unit in the back, and then maybe we'll do something about hanging up some of these tools and stuff, get them off the floor and up onto the wall. Let's see what I come up with. So the shed was about 82 inches wide. I went 81 to give me a little bit of room. I'm going to have to assemble it in the shed. It'll never fit through the doors otherwise. And if I did go through the door long ways, I wouldn't have the room to turn it to the proper direction. I want it to go against the back wall. So it's 20 inches wide. I cut some 2x4s 20 inches wide. It's 81 inches long. That came out to about 77 3/4. I have it written down somewhere. Anyway, minus the thickness here and here. So 81 would go 80, 79, 78. Yeah, so 77 3/4. So that I have a little bit of this OSB sticking out past the edge all the way around. And I'm going to use some framing nails in the framing nailer to nail this together. This will be the top shelf. And the middle shelf is going to be done a little bit differently. I'll show you what I'm talking about when we get there. Oh, I'm also going to cut some studs, if you will. Joists, I guess, would be the better option. I don't know. Maybe I'll do every 24 inches or something. Just to give this a little bit extra rigidity. These 2x4s have a crown to them, which means they're a little warped or bowed. I have the bow facing up, which means the bow is upside down right now, so the bow is actually facing down. But that way, as gravity works on the shelf, the bow will be fighting gravity, and gravity will be fighting the bow. And let me get this nailed together. So these from outer edge to outer edge were 20, but our joists are going to be inside edge. And they're going to be about 16 5/8. This looks like it might be in a little bit. Yes, it is. So I'm going to say 16 3/4. And there's going to be 3 of them at 20 inches, 40 inches, 20 inches. Just centering these up every 20 inches. It's not a house, it don't have to be perfect. that. So I'm switching nails from a framing nail, 16 penny, to a nail for plywood. It's got these rings in it, and it's also coated in a yellow glue. These are called coolers. When they're driven in, the heat melts the glue, and then it cools. And between those rings and that glue, you have one heck of a time trying to get these out. They're a little oversized, but they're what I have laying around, so that's what I'm using. Okay, get this squared up, centered. I aim my nails a little bit in, just in case they blow out. It'll be on the inside and not showing on the outside. Now let me go square you up on the other side. I've got like a 1/16 of an inch overlap all the way around. Now I'll fill in between and hit the studs. That's the top shelf built and nailed down, framed out. We'll put that up against the wall to get it out of the way. And I'll show you what's going to be a little bit different about the lower shelf, the bottom shelf. It's only going to be a 2-shelf unit. First shelf will be about 2 feet high. Next shelf will be about 5 feet high. And that'll be the top of the shelving unit. So this will be the bottom shelf, or the middle shelf. Like I said, it's going to be about 2 feet high. And the difference between this shelf and the top shelf is the legs are going to pass straight through, like so. So there'll be 2 feet of leg underneath this ledge here, which is going to give us room to store the leaf blower under it, the push mower, etc. And then the legs will continue on through, coming on up, and it'll reach a grand total height of 62 inches or 5 feet. Now that 62 inches is going to be to the plywood top of that shelf. So next we're going to work on the legs, and I'll show you how they're going to be constructed. So both legs of take two. Both sets of legs are now built, at least as much as I can build them. And the idea here is that this set of legs will be at this end. The other set of legs will be at the other end. The legs will go in first. The shelf will slip over the top, come down and rest on that cleat. The cleat will go under the 2x4 along the edge of the shelf there. I set the cleat to 24 inches from on top of this foot plate that I put down there, which is actually going to give me more like 26 inches. So there's a little bit of room to play with as far as fitting the leaf blower underneath this bottom shelf. Then once the bottom shelf is on the legs and the legs are fastened, I'm going to be able to screw them through from this side into this 2x4, and then I will be able to screw through the front into this 2x4. The idea is to leave it away from the wall, and I'll be able to screw in through the back into this 2x4, and then once it's assembled I will slide it back against the wall. And that will give me my 2 sets of legs going through the middle shelf. Then the top shelf will simply get placed up on top. The 2x4 here will ride on the inside of the 2x4s of the shelf. The top shelf doesn't have the plywood cut out, so once it hits the plywood, it'll stop. That'll hold it up there for me while I fasten it. Same basic principle as the middle shelf. And that cleat is also to stabilize it left to right. I will probably put some gussets going from the top shelf, which isn't here right now obviously, 45-degree angle down to the leg, and that will keep it from rocking left and right. That and a pretty snug fit inside the walls of the shed. If you don't get it, you'll understand better when you watch what I do next, which is to assemble it. Alright, so thank God I had a little help. This turned out to be easier with two people. I had to lay the legs down on both sides and then get them started, and it's such a snug fit. I found the easiest thing to do was to just tap it with the sledgehammer. My hands and arms were working too, but I was on one side, my friend was on the other side, the client, and well, it just went easier to give it a little tippy tap tap with the sledge. And now you can see it is seated on that plywood brace that I put in, which gives it a little bit of front to back rigidity. I'm going to leave it away from the wall until I get a chance to screw it, and then it's going to be slid back against the wall. I'm also going to put the top shelf on and screw that before I put it back against the wall. I may have some clearance issues. If I do, not a problem. I'll just nip the same amount off of all four posts and make that low enough that I can have room to maneuver. But we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. Meanwhile, I think you can see what I was talking about in the last video. And I put those feet down there because this is kind of like a heavy-duty rubber floor, and I didn't want the post to eventually break through, sink through, settle unevenly. So that's why I did that. Let me see if I can get the top on. So I was able to hook that side on very easily. This side I get up just about to here, but I'm hitting the roof and the plastic is starting to bend, and it's just not worth blowing apart the shed trying to force it. So I'm going to knock a few inches off so that this will clear the top of this when the plywood is just about kissing there. And I'll be able to kind of slide it in and pop it down. So I'm going to measure the thickness of this, the shelf. It comes in at about 4.5 inches. I'm going to cut this 4.5 inches down from the roof line. So we're only going to be taking off 2.5 inches. Okay. This is probably a bad idea. Let's see if it works. Hopefully you guys can see what's going on. Make sure you can see what's going on. So that is in place, and this side is in place, and now I screw it together. Oh, I already got the back. Let me get the front. Okay, we got those screws on. And you can see that cleat that I screwed on the legs lines up nice. That probably gave it enough strength that I could have probably gotten away with just the one screw in the front and the back, but like I always say, if you're gonna do something, overdo it. So I'm gonna add some gussets for strength, but just to give you an idea, without the gussets, of how strong this is the way it's built now, here's 230 pounds sitting on it, and here's 230 pounds taking a nap on it. No reason why the top shelf shouldn't be just as strong as this shelf. I'd have a heck of a time fitting up there. So I think it's gonna definitely do the job. Let's see if we get any sag. Nah, not really. I was gonna climb up there, but it's just a little tight. And I'm not as nimble as I used to be. I think I proved my point. Alright, so I pre-drilled my holes and ran my screws in just a little bit to make life a little easier. Now we're going to install the gusset. Reusing screws that I took out of this stuff when it was the shelving in the garage. You can see I pitched my holes so that I hit wood. That's one gusset. Two gussets. Gusset number 3. And gusset number 4. We are nice and sturdy. Time to start loading it up, but first I'm going to put a plate of plywood on that wall and a plate of plywood on that wall, and that'll give us a place to hang gardening tools and such. Okay, the plywood is up, both sides. Now it's time to get that stuff in here. Ta-da! We have a mostly empty shelf. Got a bunch of stuff up off the ground over here. I hung a couple things up on the shelving unit itself. Stuff you don't need to get to too often. And then there is this. Not a whole lot of space left. But still got shelf space, still got floor space, room for the kids to get their bikes in and out of here. Just have to turn them sideways maybe. I think this was a very important, crucially important, needed improvement to the shed. It's amazing when you get everything off the ground how big your shed really is when it's not just stuff scattered all over the place. And it's hard to explain that to people. They don't believe me. But I'd say seeing is believing. That's it for this project. See you in the next one. Nope. The bike does fit. Plenty of room for the little one and the scooters and the hoverboards and all that crap too.